most people think that when it comes to learning Spanish, they need a bunch of Spanish words. They need to memorize all this vocabulary. They need to, have just list upon list upon list of vocabulary words because it's like, hey, you never know when you'll need it, right? Well, that's not how you learn Spanish, right? So when I was learning Spanish, I had the same mindset, right? I would just go through. I had like a Spanish dictionary. It was like not like the app, but like an actual book that I would carry around with. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just memorize every word in here and just go through here a day by day and just, I'll learn Spanish that way. That's not how it works. That is not how it works at all. Knowing a bunch of vocabulary words is not the key to learning Spanish, right? The key to learning Spanish is understanding patterns, having a flow with Spanish and repetition, right? Because we got to think about it, right? When you're speaking English, do you know every word in the English vocabulary? No, but you know how to speak it, right? I'm sure, like you probably had a conversation with somebody, and you'd be like, "Hey, what's that? How do you say? What's that word that it means to be able to or something like that, right? Like it's words like things like that. You might have to break over the thesaurus. So what you have to do, right, is you have to have a system. And what I mean by a system is you need to understand how to build sentences and understand the rules of Spanish and then start to recognize the patterns. And through repetition, you'll start to pick up on these patterns. You'll start to pick up on words. And then, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the cool thing about it. When you do it this way, you can start speaking Spanish. And then if there's a word you don't know, you can ask someone in Spanish how to say that word or what does it, what's a word for this, right? Or you could just say less. And then sometimes people just fill in the blank as you're building a sentence and they'll fill it in for you. That's really the beauty of having a Spanish learning system in place of just memorizing a whole bunch of vocabulary words. That is not effective. It's just gonna burn you out. It burnt me out. It burnt me out bad. I told you that big old dictionary I had. I probably did like 2 days of it, and I just quit it. I was like, man, this is just way too hard. There's no way I'm gonna remember all these words because that's how we're programmed to learn. We're programmed to learn these archaic methods, like in school. Like we're just gonna memorize a bunch of words, take the test Friday, and then we're gonna forget everything Saturday and Sunday, and then we just go back to not knowing what we want to know. But if you actually apply these principles, like I said about pattern recognition, right, being able to build sentences, understanding, and there are core verbs that will help you build sentences, right? Because these are the words we use in everyday life. Because as adult learners, right, as we speak through life, what we want to do, we want to communicate our desires, our needs, our wants, what we can do, what we will do, what we be able to do, things like that, right? That's what we want to do. So when you hone in on just a core set of verbs and learn how to build sentences, essentially you can just build a sentence out, speak it to somebody, and then it might have like a blank, like in those like game shows where it's like I am blank or whatever, right? Like that's how life will be for a minute, right? You'll just be able to build a sentence out, understand the sentence, and then you'll be like, I am happy, right? Then it starts to click, then it starts to click. Things like that will start to click for you, and life will just start to fall in. And then see, and the reason why I talk about like a Spanish learning system in place of like traditional methods is that when you have a Spanish learning system, it makes the world your classroom, right? And then the people become your teachers, where you're not dependent on a tutor, you're not dependent on Duolingo challenges, you're not dependent on taking a class or like where only the learning only happens in the classroom or with the tutor. You want to be able to learn constantly. You want to make your entire environment, you want to make everything around you become a learning environment. And that's how you learn Spanish faster. But that's why I say what I say. Learn Spanish way faster because the quicker you get to speaking, the quicker you're engaged, right? And we remove all the friction of like remembering stuff, changing your phone to Spanish, all the other silly shit. If we remove all that friction and we get you to an engaging environment where you're speaking to people, where you're talking to people, where you're listening, your understanding. The faster we get you there, the quicker you are to be engaged, and the quicker you're going to stick with it. Because I mean, let's be honest. Like learning a language, it's not a overnight thing. It's not something you can do in a night class, right? But however, you can start speaking a lot sooner than you think. And then once you get to a certain level, you won't need me, the Spanish, like, once you like internalize the concepts of the Spanish learning system, and once you start to implement it and then practice it and get feedback and start getting wins and wins and wins upon wins and start speaking to people and start making new friends, start experiencing more things, then it's going to be like, hey, okay, this is all I really need to do. And I can just keep getting better little by little, I just keep getting better and better and better. And then you don't have to ask anybody anything. And then because you can just always go back to the, okay, I got this. Okay, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that. I know I need to do that. Okay, I'm having trouble with this. Then you go back to that, and you always have a point of reference to go back to, and then this is what's going to stop you from picking it up, dropping it down, picking it up. All these things. Because like for me, I was learning Spanish. It took me years, but it only took me that long because I didn't have a learning system. I had traditional learning methods. I would go online, watch a bunch of tutorials. I had a tutor. I go on there, like I forgot what this site was. It was like a tutor. You pay like $40 an hour, $20 an hour. I can't remember. And like it just never worked. All right. So yeah, you don't need a bunch of vocabulary words. You don't need all those. You need a Spanish learning system. That's what you need. That's what helped me. That's what helped everybody else. Do I help learn Spanish? It is really the key because like I said before, you need to be able to be engaged. You need quick wins, and you need to make the world your classroom and everybody and all the people your teachers instead of being dependent. Now you're independent, and now you're more flexible, and now you're defining how you're learning and you're taking charge of your learning, and this is what's going to keep you empowered and keep you engaged. So if you're interested in learning Spanish and you're tired of struggling and you don't want to do what I did and go through the years and years and years and years of struggling, go down to the link in the description box below and get my Spanish learning system top notch. People are already enjoying it. I'm getting messages and everything. So, yeah, man, hit the link in the description box below, y'all. It's your boy Lou. Get my Spanish learning system and let's make the world bilingual, man. Let's build a new world. Y'all have a good one. Peace.